The Valdran Empire had ruled the stars for 12,000 years. Their ships numbered in the billions, spread across 47 galaxies like a plague of metal and crystal. Every species they encountered faced the same choice: surrender or die. Most chose to surrender. Those who didn't were erased from history. The Valdran themselves were not flesh and blood. They were beings made of living crystal, their bodies glowing with internal energy that pulsed like a heartbeat. They needed no food, no water, no air. They lived for thousands of years and saw organic life as weak and temporary. To them, humans were just another species of soft creatures waiting to be conquered. Empress Kethsara ruled the Valdran from her throne on Valdros Prime, a massive station at the center of their empire. She was ancient even by Valdran standards, having lived for 8,000 years. Under her command, the empire had destroyed more than 500 civilizations. She saw conquest not as cruelty but as natural order. The strong ruled. The weak served or perished. When Valdran scout ships found humanity, they sent back reports that made the empire's military commanders laugh. Humans controlled only 32 star systems. Their fastest ships needed weeks to travel between planets. Their weapons were primitive fusion bombs and plasma cannons. The scouts labeled humanity as minimal threat and suggested they would make good farmers for Valdran agricultural worlds. Fleet Commander Zethron received orders to claim the human systems. He was given 2,000 warships for the mission, though he privately thought even 100 would be too many. Humans had no defense fleet worth mentioning. They had no allies. They had barely begun to explore beyond their own solar system. This would be over in days. Zethron didn't know that humans had found something 30 years earlier. A probe had crashed on Titan, one of Saturn's moons. The probe was not Valdran. It came from a species the Valdran had destroyed 600 years ago. But that species had hidden their technology inside automated probes sent to distant galaxies. When humans found it, they didn't understand most of it. But they learned. The best scientists from Earth, Mars, and the outer colonies worked together in secret. They studied the alien technology and tried to understand how it worked. Slowly, they began to figure it out. The technology didn't just move through space. It moved through reality itself, bending the rules of physics in ways that seemed impossible. After 20 years of work, they built a ship. They called it the USS Defiance. It looked like a normal warship on the outside, but inside it carried something humans called the paradox engine. The engine could change probability, make the ship exist in multiple places at once, and turn enemy weapons against themselves. In theory. It had never been tested in real combat. Captain Jake Morrison commanded the Defiance. He was 42 years old, with gray starting to show in his dark hair. He had fought in the war between Earth and Mars 5 years earlier. A stupid conflict over mining rights that killed thousands before both sides realized they needed each other. Jake had seen friends die in that war. He had learned that fighting was sometimes necessary, but it should never be the first choice. His crew numbered 360 people. They came from every human colony, speaking different languages and following different traditions. But they all volunteered for the same reason. They wanted to protect humanity's freedom. They knew the Defiance was experimental and dangerous. They knew they might not survive. They came anyway. Commander Lisa Chen was Jake's second in command. She was brilliant with tactics and had a gift for staying calm when everything went wrong. Lieutenant Ben Hayes managed the ship's weapons and sensors. He was young but talented, with quick reflexes and a sharp mind. Dr. Emma Rodriguez led the science team responsible for the paradox engine. She understood the technology better than anyone else alive, though she admitted that understanding was a generous word for dealing with equipment that broke the laws of physics. The Defiance was stationed near Neptune when the Valdran fleet arrived. Ben saw them first on the long-range sensors. He stared at his screen for several seconds before he could speak. "Captain, you need to see this." Jake walked to the sensor station. The screen showed 2,000 ships emerging from hyperspace at the edge of the solar system. Each ship was enormous, dwarfing even humanity's largest carriers. They moved in perfect formation like a school of mechanical fish. "Get me fleet command," Jake said quietly. His voice was calm, but his hands gripped the armrest of his chair. "Tell them the Valdran are here. Tell them it's worse than we thought." Admiral Chris Bennett appeared on the communication screen minutes later. His face was pale. "We're seeing them, Jake. 2,000 ships. We have 42 capital ships in the entire fleet. This isn't a battle. It's an execution. What are your orders, sir? Bennett looked away from the camera. When he looked back, he seemed older. The Defense Council is meeting now. Stand by. The communication cut off. Jake stood and addressed his crew. Everyone knows what we're facing. I won't lie to you. The odds are bad, but we're not dead yet. Check your stations. Make sure everything is working. If we have to fight, I want us ready. The crew moved with practiced efficiency, but Jake could see the fear in their eyes. 2,000 ships. It was impossible. No amount of courage or training could overcome those numbers. Unless the paradox engine worked. Unless they could change the rules of the fight itself. The Valdran fleet broadcast a message on all frequencies. The voice was cold and mechanical, speaking in perfect English that the Valdran computers had learned from intercepted human communications. This is Fleet Commander Zethron of the Valdran Empire. You are ordered to surrender unconditionally. Disable all military vessels and await instruction. You have 1 day to comply. Refusal will result in the complete destruction of your species. This is your only warning. Jake listened to the message and thought about humanity's history. Humans had always faced impossible odds. They fought against nature, against disease, against each other. Sometimes they lost. But they never stopped trying. They never accepted that something was impossible just because it looked that way. He opened a channel to Admiral Bennett. Sir, we need to talk about the Defiance. We need to talk about fighting back. Bennett's image appeared on the screen. Behind him, Jake could see other admirals and politicians arguing. Jake, we can't fight them. It's suicide, maybe, Jake said. But it's also suicide to surrender. At least if we fight, we die on our feet. The emergency meeting lasted 6 hours. Every leader of every human colony joined by holographic link. The Defense Council chamber on Earth became a space filled with arguing voices and desperate plans. Everyone knew the truth. Fighting was impossible. Surrendering meant slavery. There was no good choice. Admiral Chris Bennett stood at the center of the chamber. His uniform was crisp, but his eyes showed he hadn't slept. We need to face reality. 2,000 Valdran warships against our entire fleet is not a battle. It's mass murder. If we fight conventionally, we'll last maybe 20 minutes before every ship is destroyed. Defense Minister Kate Williams leaned forward in her chair. She was a tough woman who had served in the military before moving into politics. Then we negotiate. We ask for terms. Maybe they'll let us keep some autonomy if we cooperate. The Valdran don't negotiate, said Ambassador Claire Peterson. She had studied every bit of information humanity had gathered about the Empire. They conquer. Their message was clear. Unconditional surrender or extinction. Those are our only options in their minds. Then we're dead either way, someone said from the back of the room. Jake Morrison listened to the arguments through his holographic link from the Defiance. Finally, he spoke up. There's a third option. We change the game. The room fell silent. Everyone turned to look at his image. The Defiance was built for this, Jake continued. Not to fight a conventional battle, but to make conventional battle impossible. The paradox engine can alter local reality. Inside its field, their weapons won't work the way they expect. Their shields won't protect them. Their tactics become meaningless. Dr. Emma Rodriguez joined the link. She looked exhausted. Her team had been running calculations for hours. The paradox engine works by manipulating quantum probability fields. In simple terms, we can make unlikely things become likely, and likely things become unlikely. A weapon that should hit us will miss. A weapon we fire that should miss will hit. We can exist in multiple quantum states at once, making us impossible to target accurately. Kate Williams shook her head. Has this been tested in combat? No, Emma admitted. We've run simulations and controlled experiments. The math works. The physics works. But we've never faced actual hostile fire. So you want to bet humanity's survival on an untested weapon system? Kate's voice was sharp. We're betting humanity's survival no matter what we choose. Jake replied. If we surrender, we're betting the Valdran will treat us fairly. History suggests they won't. If we fight conventionally, we're betting on a miracle. At least with the Defiance, we're betting on human intelligence. We built something they've never seen before. That gives us an advantage. Admiral Bennett studied Jake's face through the holographic display. One ship, Jake. Even if the Defiance works perfectly, it's still just one ship against 2,000. Then we don't try to destroy them all, Jake said. We hurt them enough to make them think twice. We show them that conquering humanity will cost more than they're willing to pay. The Valdren have ruled for 12,000 years because no one could stop them. We don't need to beat them. We just need to prove we're not worth the trouble. The debate continued for another hour. Some argued for surrender. Others wanted to evacuate as many people as possible to distant colonies and hope some humans survived. A few suggested launching a conventional attack just to go down fighting. Finally, Admiral Bennett called for a vote. The decision would be made by majority rule among the Defense Council members. The holographic displays showed the votes coming in one by one. Green for fight, red for surrender, yellow for evacuation. The final count showed 18 green, 15 red, and 12 yellow. By 3 votes, humanity chose to fight. Kate Williams stood up, her face grim. This is a mistake. We're sending people to die for nothing. We're sending people to fight for something, Jake corrected. There's a difference. Admiral Bennett transmitted the decision to all human military forces. All ships are to take defensive positions around Earth and the inner colonies. Do not engage the Valdren fleet unless fired upon. The USS Defiance will operate independently under Captain Morrison's command. All other forces will stand by as reserve. Jake felt the weight of that order. The Defiance would go alone. If his ship failed, humanity would have no second chance. He turned to his crew on the bridge. They had heard everything. They knew the odds. I'm giving everyone a choice, Jake announced over the ship's intercom so all 360 crew members could hear. This mission is volunteer only. Anyone who wants to leave can take a shuttle back to Neptune Station. No one will think less of you. This isn't about courage. It's about accepting a mission that might not have a return trip. He waited. Silence filled the ship for almost a minute. Then Lisa Chen spoke. Captain, the crew has voted. All 360 personnel choose to stay. No one's leaving. Jake felt his throat tighten. He nodded, not trusting his voice for a moment. Then we'd better make sure we give them something worth dying for. Helm set course for the Valdren fleet, maximum speed. The Defiance turned and accelerated toward the edge of the solar system. Behind them, 42 human warships and 300 frigates formed defensive positions around Earth. They would wait and watch. If the Defiance failed, they would fight anyway, selling their lives as dearly as possible. It was all they could do. Inside the Defiance, Emma Rodriguez worked with her engineering team to prepare the Paradox engine. We're pushing into unknown territory, she told them. The engine has never run at combat power for more than a few minutes. We're going to ask it to sustain maximum output for possibly hours. If the containment field fails, we could create a quantum collapse that destroys the ship instantly. So no pressure, one of the engineers said with a nervous laugh. No pressure at all, Emma agreed. Just the survival of the human species. Everyone check your stations twice. Triple check the quantum stabilizers. I want backup systems for the backup systems. Ben Hayes calibrated the targeting systems, though he wasn't sure how useful conventional weapons would be. The Defiance carried plasma cannons and missile launchers, but their real weapon was the Paradox engine itself. Still, he made sure everything was ready. You never knew what might make the difference in battle. Lisa Chen reviewed tactical data on the Valdren ships. They were enormous, each one carrying enough firepower to level a city. Their shields could absorb nuclear explosions. Their hulls were made of crystalline metal that was nearly indestructible. On paper, they were perfect war machines, but paper didn't account for quantum probability. Paper didn't account for humans refusing to follow the rules. Jake sat in his command chair and watched the stars ahead. Somewhere out there, 2,000 ships waited. Fleet Commander Zethron probably thought this would be easy. He probably expected humans to surrender or die quickly. Jake allowed himself a small smile. He's going to learn something today. You don't conquer humanity, you just make us angry. The Valdren fleet waited in formation like a mechanical cloud around the outer edge of the solar system. 2,000 ships arranged in perfect geometric patterns that spoke of absolute confidence. Fleet Commander Zethron stood in his command center aboard the flagship Darkstar, watching the human colonies through long-range sensors. He expected surrender any moment. When the deadline passed and no surrender came, Zethron felt mild annoyance but nothing more. Defiance was common among primitive species. It never lasted long once the shooting started. Begin orbital bombardment of their military installations, he ordered. Target their shipyards and defense platforms. Destroy 10% of their infrastructure. That should motivate them to reconsider. 500 Valdren cruisers moved into position, their weapons charging. Then something appeared on the sensors that made Zetheron pause. One ship, a single human vessel emerging from behind their moon, accelerating straight toward his fleet. Is that a surrender vessel? He asked. His tactical officer examined the readings. Negative, Commander. It's transmitting military identification codes. They're calling it the USS Defiance. Zetheron made a sound that might have been Valdrin laughter. One ship attacks a fleet of 2,000. Either they're insane or this is a desperate suicide run. Either way, destroy it quickly. Send Squadron 17 to intercept. Squadron 17 consisted of 50 destroyer-class warships, each one powerful enough to crack a moon. They broke formation and moved to intercept the approaching human ship. It would be over in seconds. Aboard the Defiance, alarms sounded as 50 Valdrin ships approached. Jake Morrison watched them come on the tactical display, his face calm. Emma, how's our engine status? Paradox engine charging to full power. Emma's voice came through the intercom. Quantum field will be active in 30 seconds. Captain, once we activate, there's no going back. The power signature will mark us as a priority target for their entire fleet. That's the idea, Jake replied. We want their attention. All of it. Lisa Chen gripped her station console. 50 ships incoming. They're spreading out to surround us. Weapons charging. Let them get close, Jake said. We need them to commit. Ben Hayes' hands hovered over his controls. Captain, they're firing! 50 ships opened fire simultaneously. Plasma beams hot enough to vaporize steel converged on the Defiance from multiple angles. There was nowhere to dodge, no way to avoid the attack. The energy weapons reached the human ship and passed through it like light through glass. The Defiance shimmered and remained intact. Aboard the Dark Star, Zetheron stared at his display. What happened? Why is the target still intact? Unknown, Commander. The ship's quantum signature is fluctuating. It appears to exist in multiple probability states simultaneously. Our weapons hit it and didn't hit it at the same time. Zetheron didn't understand that explanation, but he understood results. Fire quantum torpedoes. Those will lock onto all possible states and destroy them simultaneously. The Valdrin destroyers launched a new wave of weapons, these ones glowing with strange energy. Quantum torpedoes were designed to destroy targets that tried to hide in dimensional pockets or phase shifts. They were impossible to evade. Jake watched the torpedoes streak toward his ship. Emma, now. The Paradox engine flared to full power. The quantum field around the Defiance expanded and touched the incoming torpedoes. For a fraction of a second, the torpedoes existed in a space where probability meant nothing. Their guidance systems couldn't decide if they had already hit their target or not. The uncertainty cascaded, and their quantum locks reversed. 50 quantum torpedoes turned in space and streaked back toward the Valdrin ships that had fired them. 50 destroyers exploded in balls of fire and debris before they could understand what had happened. Silence filled the Valdrin command center. Zetheron's crystalline body pulsed with colors that indicated shock and confusion. They turned our weapons against us. How is that possible? The human ship is manipulating causality itself, his science officer reported. It's changing cause and effect within a localized field. Our weapons are hitting us before we fire them. Or after, or not at all. The normal rules of physics don't apply near that vessel. Zetheron felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries of warfare. Uncertainty. He had conquered hundreds of species and never encountered anything like this. But uncertainty quickly turned to anger. He wouldn't let one primitive ship humiliate his fleet. Deploy Battle Group Prime, 500 ships. Maximum firepower. Turn that vessel into atoms. 500 cruisers and battleships converged on the Defiance. The space around the human ship became a storm of energy weapons, missiles, and exotic particle beams. Enough firepower to destroy a small planet focused on one target. Jake gripped his command chair as the ship shook from near misses. The Paradox engine was working, but it couldn't prevent every attack. Some weapons got through, hitting shields and hull plating. Shields at 60%, Ben called out. Hull breaches on deck 7 and 9. Damage control teams responding. Keep us moving, Jake ordered the helm officer. Random evasion patterns. Don't let them predict where we'll be. The Defiance danced through the firestorm, phasing in and out of normal space. Sometimes it was there, sometimes it was a ghost. Valdrin targeting systems couldn't lock on. Weapons that should have destroyed the ship instead hit empty space or struck other Valdrin vessels as the Defiance phased away at the last instant. But the Valdrin had numbers. Even with the Paradox engine, Facing 500 ships was slowly wearing the Defiance down. Jake needed to change the situation. Emma, can you increase the field radius? Expand it to cover all the ships around us. If I do that, the containment might fail, Emma warned. We could destroy ourselves. We're going to be destroyed anyway if we don't try something. Do it. Emma took a breath and pushed the paradox engine past its safety limits. The quantum field exploded outward, expanding from 50 kilometers to nearly 1,000. Suddenly, 500 Valdran ships found themselves inside a bubble where reality was negotiable. Chaos erupted. Ships that fired weapons found the weapons detonating in their own launch tubes. Vessels trying to maneuver collided with each other, as their navigation systems reported positions that kept changing. Shields failed randomly. Communication became impossible as messages arrived before they were sent. The Valdran fleet was fighting itself as much as the human ship. In 15 minutes, 500 of the Empire's finest warships were destroyed or crippled, not by human weapons but by the universe itself turning hostile. The survivors tried to retreat, but the paradox engine had created a probability well around them. Ships that tried to jump to hyperspace simply reappeared in normal space, their drives confused and overheating. Zethron watched his fleet fall apart. This was impossible. It violated everything he knew about warfare and physics. The Valdran had conquered galaxies using superior technology and overwhelming force. This human ship was using neither. It was cheating, changing the rules of reality itself. All ships, full retreat. Get out of range of that vessel. The Valdran fleet pulled back, abandoning their damaged ships. They retreated beyond the orbit of Jupiter, regrouping in disorder. Zethron's perfect formation was broken. His invincible fleet had been humiliated by one ship. Jake watched them retreat and allowed himself to breathe. His ship was damaged but intact. His crew was exhausted but alive. They had done the impossible. Send a message to Admiral Bennett, he said quietly. Tell him the Valdran are pulling back. Tell him we bought some time. Lisa Chen looked at the tactical display showing the retreating Valdran fleet. They'll be back, won't they? This isn't over. No, Jake agreed. This isn't over. But now they know we can hurt them. Now they know we're not easy prey. That changes everything. News of the defeat reached Empress Kethsara within hours. In her throne room on Valdros Prime, she listened to Fleet Commander Zethron's report in silence. Her crystalline body pulsed with colors that her advisors recognized as dangerous. Red meant anger. Deep blue meant she was thinking. The combination meant someone would suffer for this failure. Explain to me, she said when Zethron finished speaking, how one primitive ship defeated a fleet of 2,000 vessels. Explain it in a way that doesn't make me want to shatter you into dust. Zethron's holographic image flickered. Even across the vastness of space, he could feel her fury. Empress, the humans have developed technology that manipulates quantum probability. They can change reality itself within a localized field. Our weapons become useless, our tactics meaningless. It's unlike anything we've encountered in 12,000 years. 12,000 years, Kethsara repeated softly. We have conquered galaxies. We have destroyed civilizations that existed before their stars were born. We have the greatest minds, the strongest warriors, the most advanced technology in known space. And you tell me that humans who haven't even colonized their own solar system completely have surpassed us? Chief Scientist Morthek stepped forward carefully. He was old even by Valdran standards, having served 5 empresses before Kethsara. Empress, if I may speak. The humans haven't surpassed us in technology overall. They've simply approached one specific area of physics from an angle we never considered. We master the universe as it exists. They've found a way to change what existence means. Kethsara turned her attention to him. And what do you suggest, old friend? Negotiation, Morthek said. If they have this technology, perhaps we can acquire it through peaceful means. Trade, alliance, cooperation. The Empire would benefit greatly from understanding their methods. You suggest we negotiate with prey? Another advisor objected. It sets a dangerous precedent. If word spreads that we were forced to negotiate, other conquered species might rebel. Kethsara considered this. The advisor was right. The Empire's power came not just from military strength, but from the belief that resistance was futile. If humans proved resistance could succeed, it would inspire others to try. Send an embassy to the humans, she decided. Offer them a place in the Empire as administrators, not slaves. A position of honor. In exchange, they will provide their quantum technology. If they refuse, I will personally lead the Imperial fleet to their homeworld. 10,000 ships. not 2,000. I will turn their planets into dust as an example to the galaxy. She dismissed her advisors and sat alone in her throne room thinking. The Valdran Empire had never been defeated. Never. In 12,000 years, they had faced countless enemies and crushed them all. This setback was temporary. It had to be. On Earth, Captain Jake Morrison became an instant hero. The Defiance limped back to the Armstrong shipyards for repairs, and crowds gathered to watch it arrive. People cheered. Children waved flags. News broadcasts showed the battle footage repeatedly, each time emphasizing how one human ship had driven back an alien fleet. Jake didn't feel like a hero. He felt tired. The Defiance had survived, but barely. The Paradox engine had nearly melted down. 53 crew members were injured. The ship's hull had more than 100 breaches. They had won one battle, but the war wasn't over. Ambassador Claire Peterson met with Jake in a quiet office away from the celebrations. She was a woman in her 50s with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. The Valdran are sending an embassy ship, she told him. They want to negotiate. Jake raised an eyebrow. They don't strike me as the negotiating type. They're not, Claire agreed, which means they want something badly enough to pretend. Probably our Paradox engine technology. Are we going to give it to them? That depends. What do you think would happen if the Valdran had this technology? Jake considered. They'd use it to conquer even more species. They'd be unstoppable. Every advantage we have would disappear. Exactly. So we're not giving them anything, but we still have to meet with them. Politics demands it. 3 days later, the Valdran embassy ship arrived. It was smaller than their warships, but still impressive, made of the same crystalline metal that seemed to be their preferred building material. 3 Valdran representatives came aboard the negotiation station humanity had hastily built in neutral space. Claire met them in a conference room designed for the meeting. Jake stood nearby as military advisor, along with Admiral Bennett and Dr. Emma Rodriguez. The Valdran towered over the humans, standing 8 feet tall, their bodies refracting light into rainbow patterns that were beautiful and alien. The lead ambassador, who identified himself as Velthar, spoke in perfect English. The Valdran had learned human languages from intercepted communications. The Empress extends her greetings. She acknowledges your military capability and offers you an honored place in the Empire. Provide your quantum manipulation technology, and humanity will become administrators of a sector. You will govern in the Empress's name with authority over lesser species. Claire met his gaze without flinching. No. Velthar's crystalline body flickered. You refuse the Empress's generous offer. Your Empress invaded our space without warning. She threatened to exterminate us if we didn't surrender. Now she wants to pretend she's doing us a favor by making us part of her empire. The answer is no. You misunderstand your position, Velthar said. You won one battle against one fleet. The Empress commands resources beyond your comprehension. 10,000 ships, 100,000, 1,000,000 if necessary. Your technology gives you an advantage, yes, but it cannot overcome infinite numbers. Maybe not, Claire agreed, but it can make conquering us so expensive that it's not worth the cost. How many ships are you willing to lose? How many Valdran warriors will die before your Empress decides that 32 human star systems aren't worth the trouble? The Empress does not calculate worth. She takes what she wants. That is the nature of empire. Admiral Bennett leaned forward. Then let me explain something about human nature. We don't surrender to bullies. We don't hand over our weapons because someone threatens us. And we definitely don't join empires built on slavery and conquest. Tell your Empress that if she wants a fight, we'll give her one, and it won't be the easy victory she's used to. Velthar's colors shifted to patterns that might have indicated anger or frustration. You doom your species with this arrogance. The Empress will return with the Imperial fleet. When she does, your quantum technology will not save you. You will beg for mercy and you will receive none. Then we'll die fighting, Jake said quietly, which is better than living on our knees. The Valdran delegation departed. The meeting had lasted less than 30 minutes. Both sides knew war was inevitable now. Claire sat down heavily after they left. Well, that went about as badly as expected. What now? Emma asked. Now we prepare, Admiral Bennett said. The Empress won't wait long to respond. She'll want to crush us quickly, before word of her previous defeat spreads too far. We have maybe 3 months before she arrives with everything she has. Jake looked out the window at Earth floating in the distance. 3 months to build more ships with Paradox engines. 3 months to turn one miracle into something sustainable. 3 months to figure out how to survive the impossible. Can we do it? Claire asked. We're human, Jake replied. Doing the impossible is kind of our thing. We just need to do it one more time. In her throne room, Empress Kethsara received Velthar's report. The humans had refused. They had chosen death over submission. Part of her respected that. Most species begged for mercy. Humans spit defiance, but respect didn't change the outcome. She had built an empire on absolute power. If she let one species defy her and survive, the empire would crumble. Other conquered peoples would see hope where there should be none. Gather the Imperial fleet, she ordered. 10,000 ships. I will lead them myself. The humans will learn what happens when you challenge the Valdran Empire. 3 months passed too quickly. Humanity worked day and night building new ships equipped with paradox engines. The technology was difficult to replicate. Each engine required materials that were rare, and manufacturing processes that pushed human engineering to its limits. In 3 months, they managed to build 5 additional ships. The USS Resolute under Captain Ryan Cole. The USS Intrepid commanded by Sophie Martinez. The USS Valiant with Captain Alex Chen. The USS Sovereign led by Commander Dan Foster. And the USS Dauntless captained by Maya Johnson. 6 ships total, including the repaired Defiance. 6 ships to face what was coming. When the Valdran Imperial fleet emerged from hyperspace, it blotted out the stars. 10,000 warships arranged in perfect formation, and at the center flew a vessel that dwarfed everything else. The Eternal Dominion, flagship of Empress Kethsara herself, was the size of Earth's moon. Its weapons could destroy planets. Its shields could withstand the explosion of a sun. It was the symbol of Valdran power, and it had come to crush humanity. Jake Morrison met with the other 5 captains via holographic conference. They all knew the plan. They all knew the odds. 10,000 ships against 6. Even with paradox engines, the math was brutal. The plan is insane, Ryan Cole said bluntly. He was a veteran like Jake, with scars that told stories of old battles. If even one of us fails, we all die. I know, Jake replied. But we don't have a choice. If we don't stop them here, humanity is finished. Sophie Martinez leaned forward in her holographic projection. She was younger than the other captains, only 32, but she had proven herself brilliant in the simulations. We coordinate all 6 paradox engines to create one massive probability field. It will cover the entire Valdran fleet and turn space itself against them. But we need to maintain perfect formation for 90 seconds while the engines charge. 90 seconds, Alex Chen repeated, with 10,000 ships shooting at us. That's the easy part, Maya Johnson added with dark humor. The hard part is that if any ship breaks formation or loses power, the entire cascade collapses. We all have to survive for the full 90 seconds or it doesn't work. No pressure. Dan Foster muttered. Jake looked at each captain in turn. I won't lie to you. We're probably going to die today. But if we're going to die, let's make it count. Let's show the Valdran that humanity doesn't quit. Let's show the galaxy that you can't break us. The 6 ships moved into formation, flying toward the Valdran fleet like insects approaching a storm. Aboard the Eternal Dominion, Empress Kethsara watched them come. She had heard about the human ships with their reality-manipulating technology. She was not impressed. 6 ships, she said to her command staff. They sent 6 ships against my Imperial fleet. Either they're the bravest species I've ever encountered or the most foolish. Perhaps both, Empress, her tactical officer suggested. Perhaps. All ships open fire. I want those vessels destroyed immediately. 10,000 warships fired at once. The volume of weapons fire was beyond description. Plasma beams, missiles, energy weapons, exotic particle cannons, and technologies humanity didn't even have names for. Space itself seemed to burn. Nothing could survive that much firepower, nothing. Aboard the Defiance, alarms screamed. The ship shook violently as near misses rattled its hull. Shields at 70% and dropping fast, Ben Hayes called out. We're taking too many hits. All ships activate paradox engines now, Jake commanded. Maximum power. 6 ships lit up like miniature stars. The paradox engines flared to life, creating bubbles of altered reality around each vessel. The weapons fire from the Valdran fleet entered those bubbles and became uncertain. Some attacks hit, some missed. Some never happened. Some happened backward in time. Maintain formation, Sophie Martinez shouted over the communication channel. We need 60 more seconds. The 6 human ships flew through the storm of fire, staying close together. Their paradox engines began to resonate with each other, creating harmonics that amplified their effect. The separate bubbles of altered reality started to merge into one larger field. Empress Keth Sara watched her weapons prove ineffective. Focus all fire on one ship. Concentrate everything on the lead vessel. Break their formation. 5,000 ships turned their weapons on the Defiance. Jake's ship became the center of a firestorm that would have vaporized a normal vessel instantly. The shields collapsed. Hull plating melted. Internal explosions rocked the ship. We've lost main power on decks 5 through 12, Lisa Chen reported. Life support failing. Multiple hull breaches. Keep us flying, Jake ordered through gritted teeth. Blood ran down his face from a cut on his forehead. Just 30 more seconds. Emma Rodriguez worked frantically in engineering. The Paradox engine was overheating, pushed far beyond safe limits. Captain, we're losing containment. The quantum field is destabilizing. How long can you hold it? 20 seconds, maybe. Then hold it for 20 seconds. The other 5 ships closed ranks around the Defiance, trying to shield it with their own vessels. Maya Johnson's ship, the Dauntless, took a direct hit from the Eternal Dominion's secondary weapons. The ship's shields collapsed and its hull cracked open. Dauntless is hit, someone shouted. They're losing atmosphere. We're still here, Maya's voice came back, strained but determined. Paradox engine still operational. We're not breaking formation. 90 seconds. Time seemed to stretch. Jake watched the countdown on his display. 10 seconds, 5. The Defiance was falling apart around him, fires burning on multiple decks, crew members fighting to keep systems online with nothing but determination and emergency power. Now, Emma shouted. Release the cascade. 6 Paradox engines released their stored energy simultaneously. The wave of altered probability exploded outward like a tsunami of impossible physics. It swept across the entire Valdrin fleet in an instant, engulfing 10,000 ships in a bubble of reality that no longer followed normal rules. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. Ships that had fired weapons found those weapons exploding in their own launchers. Vessels attempting to maneuver collided with each other as their navigation systems reported positions that kept changing. Communication became impossible when messages arrived before they were sent, or never arrived at all, or arrived multiple times. The Valdrin fleet didn't explode. It simply stopped functioning. 10,000 warships reduced to confusion and chaos as the fundamental rules of cause and effect broke down around them. Pilots couldn't steer when turning left resulted in moving backward. Gunners couldn't shoot when pulling the trigger made the weapon vanish. Engineers couldn't repair damage when their repairs happened before the damage occurred. Empress Keth Sara stood in her command center aboard the Eternal Dominion and watched her perfect fleet fall apart. She had lived for 8,000 years. She had conquered galaxies. She had never lost. But now she watched reality itself turn against her forces, and she understood. The humans hadn't just built better weapons. They had changed what war meant. They had made traditional military power meaningless. Her 10,000 ships were useless in a space where physics was negotiable. Signal all ships to withdraw, she commanded. Her voice was quiet but firm. Retreat to Imperial space immediately. Empress? Her tactical officer questioned. You heard me. We cannot fight an enemy that changes the rules of reality itself. Withdraw. The Valdrin fleet fled, 10,000 ships jumping to hyperspace in disorder, abandoning the battle. The retreat was not tactical. It was desperate. The most powerful empire in the galaxy running from 6 human vessels. Aboard the Defiance, Jake Morrison slumped in his command chair. The ship was barely holding together. Fires burned throughout the vessel. Half the crew was injured, but they had survived. They had won. Status of other ships? He asked weakly. Resolute reports heavy damage but stable. Intrepid lost power, but crew is safe. Valiant took multiple hits, but Paradox engine is intact. Sovereign has critical damage to engines, but life support holding. Dauntless... Lisa paused. Dauntless took the worst of it. They're venting atmosphere. Casualties are high. Get rescue teams to them immediately. Jake stood carefully, his legs unsteady. He opened a channel to all human ships and stations. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the USS Defiance. The Valdrin fleet has retreated. Earth is safe. We won. The words felt strange in his mouth. They had won. 6 ships against 10,000. It shouldn't have been possible, but humans had made it possible by refusing to accept what was impossible. Days later, Empress Keth Sara sent one final message to humanity. It was brief and formal. The Valdran Empire acknowledges human sovereignty over claimed territories. Imperial forces will not enter human space. This treaty is binding under Imperial law. It was the first time in 12,000 years that the Valdran Empire had negotiated peace with a species they had not conquered. Ambassador Claire Peterson read the message and allowed herself a smile. They're actually respecting our borders. They're treating us as equals. We earned it, Admiral Bennett said. The hard way. Jake Morrison stood with his crew as the Defiance underwent repairs. The ship would fly again, though it would take months to fix all the damage. He looked at the men and women around him, these people who had faced impossible odds and refused to surrender. The Valdran conquered Galaxies, he said quietly to Lisa Chen. They